confronting evil is about, these heinous men, they're not concerned with human life. Means nothing to them. Most of them are killers themselves. And if people have to die by the hundreds of thousands, so be it. In fact, people like Stalin, Hitler, and Mao went out of their way to kill millions of people. And then they had dinner. Putin's in that category. Putin is on the cover of my upcoming book, Confronting Evil. Because this man, I don't think there's anything good about him. So we're going to have to up the pain for old Vlad if we want to get anywhere in Ukraine. I'm Bill O'Reilly. I approve the message by writing it. You can reach me, Bill at BillO'Reilly.com, Bill at BillO'Reilly.com, name and town if you wish to opine. Now let's go to the mail. Philip Merkham, Wick Life, Ohio. Bill, great job in hearing about cutbacks at food banks due to Trump cuts. Is this true? I don't know. There are going to be cuts in the federal government. There are going to be cuts in spending. Is it going to be in some food bank in Ohio? Maybe. It's up to the locals. It's up to the locals. Trump's not going to go along with the food bank cut. But we got to stop the massive spending. Stacy, it's the first time ever writing an email to any journalist. On the second time, Stacy, put your town. Okay. I was wondering what President Trump is doing with the economy and whether it will help mom and pop businesses. If this tax bill is cut and passed, is passed, not cut. The new tax bill being debated right now, Stacey. If it passes, there's relief for small business in it. So the answer would have to be yes. Democrats don't want it. They say it's tax cuts for the rich. That's what they say about everything. Mark, people that let evil and corruption take over and do nothing are weak. You're a warrior, Bill. Thank you for fighting for America. That is the theme of confronting evil. In all of these societies that we will talk about, all of these heinous villains, including Russia today, including Iran today, the folks let it happen. And that is a key to history. Americans will never let that happen, despite them saying Trump's Hitler and all that crazy stuff. In a moment, something you might not know. Our healthcare system is a mess. You know that. You wait weeks for a doctor's appointment, get 5 minutes there, then face delays, insurance, red tape. It's slow, frustrating, and it's why all family pharmacy stands out in the madness. All family pharmacy believes in medical freedom, meaning you decide what works for your health, not some agency or insurance company. Ordering is simple. No waiting rooms, pharmacy lines. Just go online, place your order, and get medications delivered right to your door. They offer 200 medications, including ivermectin and antibiotics, plus emergency kits, customized orders, even bulk buys. More than 100,000 Americans already trust All Family Pharmacy. It's time you check them out. So please go to allfamilypharmacy.com/Bill. Use promo code BILL10 for 10% off. Take your health into your own hands. That's allfamilypharmacy.com/Bill, code BILL10.
Hi, Sean Long from STL Fenceworks. A new fence or deck is an investment in your home and your lifestyle. But how do you ensure that you're getting the most out of that investment? At STL Fenceworks, we know the key is satisfaction. Satisfaction means getting a fence or deck that not only meets your needs, but exceeds your expectations. Satisfaction means working with a team that cares about your project as much as you do. Satisfaction means having confidence in the quality of your new fence or deck, knowing that it was built with the best of materials and workmanship. STL Fenceworks, your satisfaction is our passion. And for me, satisfaction is knowing that providing for your family is how I provide for mine. Visit stlfenceworks.com and experience the satisfaction in making your backyard dreams into a reality.
Now, the O'Reilly update brings you something you might not know. 65 years ago today, President Dwight Eisenhower demanded radio stations across America eliminate a practice known as payola. The chief executive called the scheme a, quote, question of public morality. Here is the story. After a series of scandals surrounding television game shows, Congress turned its attention to corruption in the music business. At the time, executives took part in a racket known as payola. Local DJs were secretly paid to play songs from a record label. The higher the fee, the more the stations promoted a song. One disc jockey in Cleveland told Congress he made more than $12,000 a month from so-called listening fees. Legendary broadcaster Dick Clark's early career was nearly derailed by a payola scandal, but he avoided the axe by selling his stake in a record company and cooperating with federal authorities. The mob was involved. Crime families financed some of the biggest acts of the 1960s, including Frank Sinatra and the Four Seasons with Frankie Valli. Finally, the Fed stepped in. Beginning in 1969, it was illegal for radio stations to promote music without disclosing all payments to the public. The rule also applies to television, movies, and newspapers. Well, despite the law, payola was part of the music business until the 1980s. And here's something else you might not know. Payola made a brief comeback just a few years ago on social media. So-called influencers, some of them, were quietly paid millions of dollars to promote cosmetics, hotels, airlines, restaurants, all without disclosing any payments to their followers on social media. Facebook, Instagram, and X, then called Twitter, banned the practice in 2019. Today, all celebrities must use the label advertisement when getting paid to push someone else's product. But that payola stuff back in the 50s and early 60s, that was wicked. Back after this. Are you feeling the impact of recent timeshare industry changes? Now more than ever, the costs of timeshare ownership far outweigh the benefits. My friends at Lone Star Transfer are the only company I trust to help you get out. Our listeners' positive feedback demonstrates why I've supported the company for years. For more than a decade, they have helped over 20,000 owners get out of the timeshare. Their exclusive options can help you get out faster and easier, more than any other option in the country. They are the only company that will give you a written guarantee and release you from your timeshare in a specific time frame. With an A+ rating at the Better Business Bureau, thousands of 5-star reviews, customer service is their top priority. For free consultation and a guaranteed solution, please call 855-551-7066. That's 855-551-7066, or go to LoneStarTransfer.com. Thank you for listening to the O'Reilly Update. I am Bill O'Reilly. No spin, just facts, and always looking out for you.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news this hour at townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. Intra-party debates over tax cuts and deficit spending made for a late night as House Republicans burned the midnight oil, pursuing what the president calls one big, beautiful bill. Here's Bernie Bennett.
After gaveling in after 10 p.m. on Sunday and meeting for just under an hour, the committee voted 17-16 to advance the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which would extend President Trump's tax cuts and boost his border funding priorities while reforming Medicaid and food assistance programs. Chairman Jody Arrington of Texas summarized.
Well, tonight, the House Budget Committee took a critical step to passing the One Big Beautiful Bill Act and making President Trump's America First vision a reality for the American people.
Ranking member Brendan Boyle of Pennsylvania shared his objections to the vote.
CBO saying 13,700,000 Americans at least will lose their health care because of this bill for billionaires that was passed.
Bernie Bennett in Washington.
Officials have increased the reward for the capture of 7 escaped New Orleans inmates. FBI Special Agent Jonathan Trapp said the Bureau is now offering $10,000 per inmate. Former President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with prostate cancer. Biden's office says he was diagnosed with the cancer on Friday, with the cancer cells having spread to the bone now. The 82-year-old Biden and his family are reviewing treatment options with his doctors. President Trump has invited Pope Leo XIV to pay a visit to the United States. Here's White House correspondent Greg Clugston reporting.
During his visit to the Vatican over the weekend, Vice President Vance delivered a letter to the Pope from President Trump and the First Lady,
extending their warm wishes and inviting them to the White House as soon as they possibly can come.
The Chicago-born Pope took the letter and put it on his desk. As for a U.S. visit, he was heard saying, "at some point," according to Vatican media video footage. Greg Clugston, Washington.
More on these stories at townhall.com.
You heard the news. Newsmax just went public on the New York Stock Exchange and listed on the big board. Millions of Americans like you are joining our news revolution. Reuters Institute says Newsmax is one of the top 12 news brands in America. Even President Trump says it's terrific. 40 million Americans go to Newsmax, and its audience grew 50% since the same time last year. Millions really are making the switch to Newsmax. If you want to be a Newsmax share owner, call your advisor or get more info at newsmaxinvest.com. Stand with Newsmax today for a strong America. This communication is for informational purposes only and shall not be intended to or shall not constitute any offer to buy or sell securities, nor shall there be any sale of securities in any jurisdiction in which such offer, solicitation.
From the Michael's Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Another risk of severe storms threatening later this evening and into the overnight hours from about 9 o'clock or so this evening until maybe 3 a.m. in the metro area. We have a risk of all three hazards: hail, wind, and tornadoes. Then it should quiet down for Tuesday morning, but again in Tuesday early in the day, maybe around midday or late morning until the afternoon hours, there's another risk of severe storms if thunderstorms manage to form tomorrow. The primary risk from those storms would be large hail. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Earhart.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Stifel, serving investors for over 130 years. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com.
This Memorial Day weekend, bring your crew to Busch Stadium to see the Cardinals take on the D-backs. May 23rd to the 25th, catch great promotions all weekend long, including a Mason Win bobblehead and a Kid City Connect jersey giveaway. Kick off your summer with ballpark hot dogs, ice-cold beers, and entertainment for the whole family. Available at Cardinals.com. This is how summer is meant to be. See you at the ballpark.
This is Alec Burleson, St. Louis Cardinals, for the Lou.
Catch a Cardinals game on your next date night or friends night out. Whether it's love in the stands or laughter with your crew, nothing beats ballpark vibes under the lights. Cold drinks, great eats, and Cardinals baseball. Check out Friday Night Live at Busch Stadium and enjoy happy hour price food and drinks all game long. Every Friday home game. Get your tickets today at Cardinals.com and make memories that go beyond the scoreboard. Busch Stadium, where great nights begin.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Yes, I listen on my phone.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
Love the all-new News Talk STL app.
It is awesome. And listen anytime.
Love the News Talk STL app.
Anywhere. Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
Lying dog-faced pony shoulder. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here? As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
To all of our friends in the insurance industry, I've got a message for you. You need to pay out claims. We need 100% of claims that are eligible to be paid out, and they need to be paid out in full. I have written to every insurance company, every insurer in the state over the weekend and put them on notice. At my Senate page, we have an email hotline. We've got an online portal devoted. We're going to have a number set up so people can call us. I've been handing out my number left and right. I said, if you can't get your claims processed, you come to me. I want to see these insurance companies pay out these claims. These folks are going to need it.
That is our senior senator, U.S. Senator Josh Hawley, regarding the massive amount of storm damage that we've had across the Show Me State and the Middle Midwest over the last few weeks or so. Folks, eyes on the skies. Unfortunately, we have another round of bad weather, of severe weather that's supposed to come through, Chris, this evening. Late while we're probably all sleeping. Yeah, so exactly. Everybody have your alarms and your code red alerts. You're probably going to get woken up tonight. Hopefully since it's overnight, there'll be less energy in the air. We were supposed to get a round of bad weather this afternoon that never materialized, so we'll just knock on wood there. Welcome to Monday's edition of the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, May the 19th, 2025, 4:07 in the PM. I am here in studio along with Chris Arps, producer Joey V. If you're watching us on any of our 5 streaming platforms, you'll see we have a special guest in the studio today. I think this is Joey's new boss. I think that's new supervisor, right?
Of course. I like to be told what to do. My girl knows that. So yeah.
And we're all married. So
we have Ashlyn. Ashlyn is in studio. She's doing a little job shadowing this afternoon. So again, if you're watching us on any of our streaming platforms, Rumble, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or Instagram, you can see the lovely Ashlyn. You can see the 3 of us. We are back in the saddle. Chris, you, thankfully, were able to travel safely to the southwest portion of the United States and back.
I did. Out Friday, and I was able to visit my childhood friend for 50-plus years. He had moved to Phoenix, Arizona about 5 years ago. And so we decided to book a trip and do, guy things, go to the ball game, drink too much, talk about old war stories, and flew out of there, Tim, about a half hour before the storms hit. I had no idea that we were going to have that type of weather. The flight, the first 30 to 45 minutes was very, very turbulent. Heading out of St. Louis, I found out that we had the bad weather when I text my wife. It's kind of the routine we do. And I told her, hey, we landed safely. And that's when she told me that, boy, you missed some very bad weather. We had to go down in the basement, me and the cat. She said it was pitch dark. And she said that thing that we always hear when you talk about tornadoes. She said that she thought that she heard the train sound, and it was a very scary situation. But even with all that, Tim, we had no damage at all. Just, of course, a lot of leaves because of the wind. But thank God that we didn't have any damage.
Praise God. I'm very happy. Very happy to hear that. Chris, I thought I was going to be in the middle of it on Friday afternoon. I was driving to the studio, and the storm system was moving up Interstate 44 on that traditional southwest to northeast track, straight up Interstate 44. And so I'm about halfway to the studio, and I'm like, I'm going to get off the highway here in Fenton, and I'm going to get some gas at the big giant Wally's and park underneath the big overhang. And if worse comes to worse, I'm going to run inside Wally's because it's a big ass brick building, and it has interior spaces with no windows. So I'm waiting, and all this wind, and it starts, and there's things being thrown against the sides of the cars. And I'm like, here we go. And I was getting ready to go back inside, and then it just kind of died off. I looked to the north. I looked straight up, basically Interstate 270, and the skies are turning black and worse yet, green. You got black and green skies. The cells had appeared out of nowhere, seemingly, with this big pressure system. We could get Stell in here, and he can explain all this to us. But I'm just telling you, it was wild, and I could see it moving across. So I just stayed where I was. South ended up being fine. Mid-county got hammered. Clayton got raked. And then the city of St. Louis, Chris, experienced the worst tornado damage that it has since like 1959.
I want to give a PSA here, something I'd never really thought about, and it's not funny, but probably the worst thing you want to do
if you're in a car and in a tornado, is to go underneath an overpass.
That's what they say.
But you would think, yeah, that's, I'm shaded from because of course a tornado, the thing could collapse on you. And it's something I never thought about, and I'm glad I saw that in the paper. Do not park underneath an underpass. I'm going to admit here, I think I've done that for really.
Oh, we all have.
But it wasn't tornadic, but it was more just a lot of rain and stuff. But that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yep, I was doing what everyone should do during storm activity. I was listening to us, News Talk STL. Tony had on the Camo V4 folks, and at the same time I'm listening to the radio, I'm watching Steve Templeton on my app on my phone with the map, and I could see how the cells where I was were dissipating, and I could see how they were growing because he was doing the radar look in, and I heard them say, yes, we have a tornado signature. It looks like it has appeared over Clayton, and it's going straight down Interstate 70 into the city, and it hammered the city of St. Louis. Folks, if you're looking to help, and a lot of us, a lot of times in these situations, feel helpless, we have compiled a list of organizations that we believe are great organizations to donate to. Just go to our website, newstalkstl.com. We got that up as quick as we could. We've compiled several organizations who are helping our community recover from storms. And Chris, I'll throw one out there. We've interviewed this guy several times. It's been a while. Convoy of Hope. We've interviewed Ethan Forhetz, who is a great guy, former media guy, based here in Missouri. They respond to disasters, not only here in Missouri, but around the country and around the world. Convoyofhope.org. I would highly recommend convoyofhope.org. And maybe we'll get Ethan on sometime in the near future because there have been a lot of these storms all over the place.
That clip we brought in, Senator Hawley, our senior senator, once again being populist. And let me put it this way. I don't want to put anything on his motives. It's the right thing. We have seen instances where there's been hurricanes and other parts where there's been natural disasters that insurance companies have been slow to pay out. But I think this is another kind of feather in his cap, per se, of leaning towards the populist position on things. I mean, ordinarily in the past, you would never hear a Republican, the first thing that he's coming out saying, pay out these insurance premiums. Usually, you would give the benefit of the doubt to the company that they're going to do that. But I just find it just very interesting. And I don't question his conservatism. I think he's still very pro-life. I think he's, low taxes, strong foreign policy. But this populism is just very, very interesting.
I agree. And on some issues, he has upset the apple cart on conservatives. I can tell you, Grover Norquist.
Like I'm not going to don't cut Medicaid, or I'm not going to vote for it.
Yep. Our buddy Grover Norquist at Americans for Tax Reform has not been happy with Josh Hawley's stance on some of these union issues. I appreciate some of Josh Hawley's out of the box thinking. I just hope he doesn't go too far. Look, you want to be balanced, right? Call out insurance companies when they should be called out. But on the other hand, things like a millionaire's tax or a billionaire's tax, Republicans should never increase taxes on anyone. And I would he's very much, Josh Hawley's reminding me of like the Teddy Roosevelt type of Republicanism that popped up in the 1900s.
One thing that catching up on the news on the plane and everything, and I wasn't here, so I wasn't really, really keen on it. But there seems to be a controversy brewing among city officials that the aid and that FEMA has not come in quick enough. I've been hearing some of the politicians talking about that. Have you heard that FEMA is not? I mean, Kara Spencer, the new mayor, has said something about that. I think I've heard some other city officials talk about that.
I heard there may be a delay.
Yeah.
I did hear that. And it was either somebody on our station was talking about that earlier. I don't remember if it was Mike, Vic, or Jamie, but one of them mentioned that today. And so that is a concern. And we will get an opportunity to speak with former U.S. Senator Jim Talent. Jim has a lot of experience in dealing with the government and with aid and what the timeline for that should be. So we'll talk to Jim about that. And Chris, you mentioned there's a lot of news. I mean, we have international news stories, breaking news stories today, with Trump declaring that he had a successful call with Vladimir Putin. We have no idea what that means.
Yeah, I like to see some transcripts.
We will find out. So there's that. National news, of course, Chris, we had the news break over the weekend regarding the ongoing saga of Joe Biden revelations that have all come out after his departure from the White House. First, we found out that we found out from the media. I mean, come on, we were talking about this for months, but the national legacy media finally decided that Joe Biden was having cognitive issues. Then, Chris, we found out that his shuffling gait was because of a major back problem, and he was maybe going to have to be in a wheelchair if he won a second term.
Right.
And then, most horrifically, and, on a human level, I feel bad for this. I don't feel bad. The Bidens to me are the most horrible grifters ever to be in the White House. But on a human level, I feel horrible about the news learning that Joe Biden has advanced prostate cancer.
Right. I mean, my prayers and thoughts go out to the former president. Of course, it's stage 4. They said that it is metastasized into his bones. So that doesn't look like that's a very promising prognosis. But it just goes back to what we've all have seen the last 4 years, the president that had cognitive difficulty. And the real money quote that has been played over and over and over is when Joe Biden was at a press conference in 2022, 23, and he let it blurt out that he had cancer. Remember, he said,
Yes.
yeah, and I have cancer. And the White House later tried to clean it up, said it was skin cancer, that's what he was talking about,
He
or it had something, he
misspoke.
misspoke, or it had some, or he was talking about his son's cancer. And during that time, he probably did have cancer. I've seen stuff with Rahm Emanuel's brother, Zeke Emanuel, over the weekend. He said with stage 4 cancer like this is not something he's got the last 3 or 6 months. He may have had this at the beginning of his presidency, even during when he was running for president. It could have been going at that time. And you think about that. How can a cancer be at stage 4 for the president of the United States, who probably gets one of the most thorough exams that a man can get annually, probably semi-annually? How could they have missed that? And now they're disclosing less than 6 months out from his presidency that he has metastasized stage 4 cancer. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We guys are probably notorious for not going to physicians as much as we should, and I'm an example of that. I'm really good about going to the dentist twice a year. I'm
You're
really
on
good.
TV and radio.
I gotta have good teeth. And my eyes. I'm really good about going to my eye doctor twice a year.
Yeah.
And they can tell a lot from your eyes these days with your blood pressure.
Oh, they've
and all
told
that.
me I have high cholesterol.
All that.
for my eyes.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
How they can, okay, so I do that. I have a few other. I go to comprehensive chiropractic for all my musculoskeletal problems and my aches and pains, and they can tell a lot about your body as well when they're doing that. I've had a primary care physician, and the guy kept moving around on me, so I lost track of him. And you know how we are.
Yep.
If we have an excuse not to go to the doctor, we'll develop it. My mom and dad are all over me like white on rice trying to get me to the doctor. Found out one of my good friends who I used to serve with, Dr. Kevin Threlkeld, who was a state rep.
Yeah.
He is my dad's physician now.
Okay.
And Kevin apparently said to my father, you get him in here to see me lickety split, because he needs to have a whole bunch of blood work and all kinds of, and I do.
My wife right now is standing up screaming.
Yes.
She's saying the same thing.
My
to
wife's
me.
yelling
like, go,
at
Tim,
yes.
go, Tim.
My
I can
wife's
hear her
yelling
now.
at the radio too. So Chris, maybe you and I need to go see Dr. Threlkeld.
Exactly.
We'll go see Kevin. We'll make it a date.
Yeah.
Because I don't like needles, so you may have to hold my hand. But
Same way, brother.
Anyway, but Chris, to your point, the president of the United States is not Tim and Chris.
Yeah.
And those guys are monitored 24/7. There's probably a physician in the next room.
If Biden sneezes, there's 3 or 4 physicians around him taking his blood, doing blood work, antibiotics, the whole 9.
So to your point, and let's remind the audience, Chris, Zeke Emanuel is a physician, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So he's speaking from.
Let's take it even further. He's the Obamacare architect.
Yes. And he's a physician, so he knows this. So the point is, we're not being critical of Joe Biden because he's got prostate cancer. We feel horrible about this. It's another cover-up in a series of cover-ups. And what if he had won? We would have a guy. We would have a guy who is cognitively challenged, potentially in a wheelchair because he has horrible, severe degenerative disc disease in his back, and now with stage 4 prostate cancer.
Yeah, and you know. Ash, I don't want to sound like a chauvinist when I say this, so just button up. But even worse, Tim, Kamala Harris would be president.
There you go.
He probably would have resigned by now. With this would have came out. He's like, I won, but I'm going to pass it to Kamala. She'd be president right now.
So there you go.
That's even a worse, scary scenario.
And maybe that was the plan.
Sorry.
Yeah. Statewide news, Chris. We are continuing to unpack the legislative session where many accomplishments were made this year versus the last 6 to 7. And the legislators, Chris, may have to go back to Jefferson City soon for a special session. We're going to have David Stokes on tomorrow, as always, to talk about that regarding stadium funding. What should conservatives get for that? We'll talk about that tomorrow. But anyway, that's that. And then, of course, we had all this horrible local news with these massive storms. Again, folks, if you want to help, you just go to newstalkstl.com. We've got a list of people that we trust that we know will be able to help down the road. So, Chris, we got Jim Talent coming up at 4:24. You're going to have a very interesting Chris's Corner today at 4:45.
I am. I'm going to talk a little bit about my flight and wonder, did the airline have an ethical responsibility to say something to the passengers? And I'll expound more on that at 4:45 on Chris's Corner.
We touched on this just a few moments ago, but my speaker stump speech, Joey was inspired by one Todd Showalter. So you might want to give him a text.
Is it comedic?
It is semi-comedic, and it's also very important. He talks about the massive media blackout that has occurred over the last few years. So I have a Todd Showalter inspired speaker stump speech today.
All right.
Susie Moore, of course, one of our faves. She is deputy managing editor at Red State. She has got a lot of late breaking news headlines, including the one regarding the Jeffrey Epstein news of the day. We'll talk to her about all that at 5:24, and then we'll wrap things up, prepare you for Larry Connors USA and more at 5:45. All right.
Exactly.
Jam-packed show today. Great to have Chris back, Joey, all three of us in the studio here on a Monday because the legislative session is over. So we're all back at it today, and we've got Jim Talent coming up next. Former U.S. Senator, chair of the Reagan Institute National Leadership Council. What do we need to know about this Trump-Putin meeting and beyond? All that. Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
Go home to mommy.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Another risk of severe storms threatening later this evening and into the overnight hours from about 9 o'clock or so this evening until maybe 3 a.m. in the metro area. We have a risk of all three hazards, hail, wind, and tornadoes. Then it should quiet down for Tuesday morning, but again in Tuesday, early in the day, maybe around midday or late morning until the afternoon hours, there's another risk of severe storms if thunderstorms manage to form tomorrow. The primary risk from those storms would be large hail. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Gerhardt.
Another RX Watch, brought to you by Onder Law. There's an evil new twist in the tragic story of baby powder and its link to ovarian cancer. Recently uncovered documents reveal that talc can contain asbestos.
The same asbestos that we know causes mesothelioma.
Right, and ovarian cancer.
In the 1970s, the industry wrote its own rules, allowing Johnson & Johnson to claim that its talc was asbestos-free, as long as it contained less than 1% asbestos.
Of course, Johnson & Johnson helped write those rules. So while we're using hazmat suits to remove the asbestos from our homes, Johnson & Johnson was telling women it's safe for their bodies.
Unbelievable. So if you've used talcum powder for feminine hygiene and contracted ovarian cancer, call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
They've already won several large verdicts against Johnson & Johnson for women just like you.
Call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH. That's 1-800-RX-WATCH or go to rxwatch.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
Getting new flooring can be exciting, or it can be a hassle. To make sure you have a great experience, use Michaels Flooring, like I did. Hi, it's Susie Moore, and Michaels Flooring has become my go-to for quality, variety, and an all-around great experience. They've been locally owned and operated for more than 30 years. Carpet, hardwood, laminate, ceramic tile, natural stone, luxury vinyl, it doesn't matter. Michaels Flooring is ready to help. 3 locations to pick from: St. Peter's, Darting Prairie, and Creve Coeur, or online at igotfloor.com. That's igotfloor.com.
News Talk STL. This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
Time keeps on slipping into the future.
Former President Joe Biden is speaking out for the first time since news of his prostate cancer diagnosis was made public. He posted on X this morning saying, quote, "Cancer touches us all. Like so many of you, Jill and I have learned that we are strongest in the broken places. Thank you for lifting us up with love and support." Can you walk us through some of the reaction that you've been seeing, Willie James?
Vice President Kamala Harris, she goes on to say, Doug and I are saddened to learn of President Biden's prostate cancer diagnosis, and President Trump himself and the First Lady say that they were saddened to hear about the diagnosis that President Biden received, but also wishing him a fast and successful recovery.
426 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. And, you know, Tim, usually when we talk to the senator, it's military, foreign affairs. But I have to talk to him. We have to talk to him about this Joe Biden revelation where the president of the United States had all of these ailments, including a mental deficiency, while President Jim Talent, senator, of course, want to get his thoughts on it. He's on the line with us. Let's get to him, Joey.
Former U.S. Senator Jim Talent and chairman of the Reagan Institute.
I'm watching this and just wondering, who's running the show.
This Jim Talent segment is brought to you by Royal Banks of Missouri.
Senator, welcome to the show. Before we get started, I have to ask you, of course, did you ride out the storm on Friday? Did you have any damage? How are you doing?
Yeah, and thanks for asking, Chris. We're fine at our house. We had about 25 minutes of high winds and including about 5 minutes of pretty heavy hail, but the roof seems to have stood up. My wife's organization, the Show Me Institute, you guys are very familiar with it.
Yes.
The building they're in, the half of the roof got blown off, and I think the thing may be uninhabitable for a long time, but fortunately nobody was injured. No, it was very bad, and a reminder that we all live in tornado country. I used to tell people in Congress we don't have hurricanes, but we get the tornadoes, and you never know where they're going to hit. And I've never been in one myself or close to one, but people who have been tell me it's just terrifying. So, my best wishes go out to everybody who's been injured by it for a quick recovery.
Senator, in your intro at the very end there, you talk about who is in charge regarding the past Biden presidency. All of these revelations have come out that kind of indicate that he wasn't in charge. Your overall thoughts on what we're learning and what we're going to learn when Tapper's book comes out, I think tomorrow.
Yeah, we already know, and this is as extraordinary an act of what's the right word for it? Just abdication by the press as I've ever seen, which is saying a lot. I mean, Joe Biden been around Washington for 50 years. Everybody knows Joe Biden, and while his judgment was never good. And I never thought much of his understanding. He could always put words together. So I knew and have been saying, you all have been saying the same thing, I'm sure, ever since his presidency began, that he was impaired in some way. I mean, our eyes tell us this. Anybody who doubts this, go back and watch the video of his debate with Paul Ryan in 2012, if you guys remember that. I was there for that because I was, as you know, very senior press surrogate and advisor in the Romney campaign. And Biden did very well in that debate. He was sharp, told a lot of untruths, but I mean, he debated very effectively. And then go look at the video and tell me he wasn't impaired. And the press had to know it. There is simply no way they couldn't have known it. And not only did they not report on it and follow up on it, but they attempted to censor and shame and attack anybody who did. And now Jake Tapper's writing a book, supposedly revealing what we already knew, and he's trying to make money off it. And they're all acting like, well, we were fooled. I mean, this is it's just utterly shameless, which is, again, saying a lot today. Now we find out that the president's had prostate cancer, and I'm no doctor, but everybody who is, tells me that that's not something that appears in the last 100 days. They had to know about that too, and they didn't tell us. So the only good, it's the complete, it has to be the complete and utter removal of whatever credibility the press has left. It's just hard for me to believe that the kind of people who were in the press when I went into office, which wasn't the 19th century, would ever have done this. I mean, they were biased, but they tried to be professional most of the time. So I don't know. It's more your area than mine. You guys are in the public affairs commenting world, but I just think it's just terrible. I mean, what do your friends in the working press tell you about it? What do they think?
Yeah, Senator, I think there's a lot of embarrassment going around. There was so much embarrassment at CNN that Jake Tapper basically had to write a mea culpa book, right? It's kind of like, Jake, you're part of the cover up and you're now, it's like he wanted a pass, right? So he could just tell the story. Senator, you keyed in on something that's important. Look, if Joe Biden had just, gone away, rode off into the sunset, none of us would be speaking about him ever again. We wouldn't care, right? He was former president. God bless him, on his merry way. And the reason we're going back to the Senator is because of all of the cover-ups that, as you pointed out, the media, they didn't just misreport them. They intentionally did not report them. There was a headline today on American Spectator, caught my attention, by Ben Domenech, and he said that Democrats should be just as up in arms about this because this is yet another scandal that is demolishing institutional trust. And so, Senator, isn't this is another brick being taken out of the wall, right? Like, we've got so much distrust in institutions that we all once used to admire and trust. This is not good for America, right? That's kind of the point.
Yeah, no, that's very well put by Ben and by you. And, Democratic leaders had to know. I don't primarily blame the politicians in this. It really is the job of the press to ferret out this kind of thing. The least they should have done, of course, was begin asking questions. When the president says that, when his doctor says the president's a robust, energetic, 81-year-old man, I mean, you have to begin interrogating that. And of course, where that would have led, because he didn't have any answers. I mean, it was perfectly obvious what was going on. But given that they failed to it, I mean, you would have thought that Democratic leaders would at some point have gotten together and said, we've got to do something. And the thing I don't understand, Tim, is it's not like if they had acted and, say, forced a 25th Amendment sort of crisis, that they would have gotten a Republican as president. I mean, it would have been her who they've been telling us would have made such a great president. So I don't understand this from any standpoint. It hurt them politically. Had Biden stayed on the ticket, he would have lost by even more. And he would have if Donald Trump hadn't exposed his condition beyond what anybody could deny. So it is very discouraging. You'd like to think better of them. It's very dangerous for the country. Now we know, for example, why the White House never did anything to Lloyd Austin, who disappeared for weeks at a time, right? Well, how could they? I mean, you don't know. You just don't know what things happened or failed to happen because of this. And we don't know who was running the country. Somebody's called it. I've read stories. People are now saying, well, who really pardoned all those people? What decisions was Biden actually able to make? I don't know. I don't know what kind of safeguards you can put into place when there's such an utter lack of integrity in the press.
Speaking with Jim Talent, former U.S. Senator and chairman of the Reagan Institute's National Leadership Council. Senator, you answered a little bit of my question of who is in charge. We were learning later, you look at the daily press briefings for the president or his daily schedule. He was waking up at about, doing his first meetings at 11 or 12 o'clock. He was only having one or two meetings throughout the day. They said that he didn't work past 4 o'clock. He lost a lot of cognitive ability after 4 o'clock. What would have happened if there would have been some serious international incident, or if the president, who maybe was sundowning or something and was giving an order that could have harmed the United States and began World War III, would there have been people there that would have stopped it? I mean, this is the president of the United States.
Yeah, I think we all can try and answer that question on a human level. What happens when everybody realizes that the person who is formally in control is not able to exercise his responsibilities. Well, what you would expect to have happen is the people closest to him, which aren't necessarily at all statutory officers. So it's not like, for example, okay, Austin now runs the Department of Defense and the White House just lets him do, which would be bad enough, but at least he's doing it. What's going to happen is the people closest to him, which is people like his wife and Hunter, probably his son, and a couple of aides, they're effectively making those decisions. I think that's what that means. They're putting papers in front of him. Now, we don't know to what extent he was still able to. That's the problem. We don't know. And this went on year after year after year, with the press accusing people of creating cheap fakes, when they would air the obvious video. I mean, I knew Biden. I served with Biden. It was obvious to me. I believe I presided once over the Senate when he was speaking. And again, it wasn't necessarily the best speech you've ever heard, but he could shoot words out. It was clear that the man was losing it. I mean, we've been around people who have been descending into senility, and that's what happened here. So, yeah, I think probably the people closest to him were effectively exercising the powers of the presidency, which you're right is a very dangerous thing.
Speaking to former U.S. Senator Jim Talent, chairman of the Reagan Institute's National Leadership Council. Senator, we have a current president who, despite his age, does seem to be rather robust, whether people like it or not. And he had a phone call today with Vladimir Putin, and allegedly that is going to lead to Russia and Ukraine beginning ceasefire negotiations. Senator, I saw one prognosticator musing today that what Putin really wants is not so much territorial land, I'm sure he would like that, but rather political control over Ukraine's strategic future. Senator, what do you think about that statement? And what do you think about Trump's call to Putin in general at this point in time?
Yeah, I think Putin wants both, but you're probably right, Tim, that if he has to accept one or the other, he wants Ukraine effectively neutralized, under effective Russian political control. No matter what agreement is eventually reached, he's going to continue trying to undermine the Ukrainian government. But what he's been trying to do is to get, as a condition of sitting down at the table, getting everything he wants, and then he's going to try and get at the table. And of course, Trump is not going to give him that. I mean, Trump's bottom line has been pretty clear from the beginning. He's willing to recognize their control over Crimea formally. He's willing to give them de facto control over the areas they've already conquered. So he's going to let them keep, which is not a lot additional, by the way. I mean, all these people that have died, all these Russian casualties, and they picked up additional territory, a little bit less than the size of Rhode Island. But he's willing to do that. He's not willing for Ukraine to give up its sovereignty. So they're going to continue to be able to have their own foreign policy, build up their arms, and engage in economic and other activities with the West. And that's the bottom line. I think that's eventually what Putin will have to agree to. But I think before we get there, the president's going to have to impose additional costs and consequences on him. And there's a lot he can do. So really, Putin is going on the patience of Donald Trump. There's a lot more we could send the Ukraines. We could subject Russian banks to secondary sanctions, which would be pretty devastating. And we could stiffen the sanctions on their oil sales, which would also be very devastating, because that's how he gets all his revenue. So I haven't read a readout yet from the conversation. I'm sure we'll hear more. But I've been wondering at what point Trump's patience is going to run out.
Senator, we, of course, cannot end a discussion with you without talking about Israel. Israel has started a new ground offensive in Gaza, and Netanyahu has vowed to totally eliminate Hamas totally. He's not going to stop. And the administration has floated a plan of relocating Palestinians from Gaza to Libya. Your overall thoughts on these two developments?
Yeah, I think this is necessary for Israel. I'm glad we're supporting them in what they're doing. They're going to end up, unless and until there's some internationalized solution that is consistent with Israeli security, they're going to end up occupying large parts of the northern part of Gaza at minimum, because that's the part that's closest to Israel. So it's in effect a vastly expanded buffer zone for Israel, so they can have some certainty these attacks won't occur. And then they're going to continue, and this time on a pretty granular level, going after everybody in Hamas and just killing as many as they can kill. Hamas, of course, can escape with their lives, their leaders, if they'll give up hostages. They won't do that, and they can end the war anytime they're willing to lay down their arms. They're not going to do that either. So I think the effect of all this is to enhance Israeli security and to step up the pressure, not just on Hamas, but on other countries that have some influence, to reach the kind of solution the president wants, which really would be relocation of many of the people in Gaza. That's what we do with refugees. We locate them someplace else so they can get on with their lives. But that means other places have to take them. And all these countries that supposedly have such concern for the Gazans don't want to take any of them in relocation. So I'm glad the Israelis are doing it. They're starting to allow in some humanitarian aid, which I think is probably necessary, but it's not going to be distributed through the normal sources. So Hamas is not going to be able to steal as much of it, which was always the concern of both Israel and the United States.
Senator, a quick follow-up on that. It wasn't reported, or I may have missed it, but in Donald Trump's swing through the Middle East last week, do you think he brought this subject up with all of the other Middle Eastern countries and tried to get some concessions or agreements about them helping with this refugee crisis situation?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he didn't, Tim. I mean, the main point of the visits were economic. He wanted investment in the United States. This is a core priority of this president, and it was a gigantic success from that standpoint. I was especially pleased by the Saudis' commitment to purchase, I think, $160 billion of American arms, because that's going to help us rebuild the defense industrial base. But I'm sure he also was talking with them about what we're going to do to Iran eventually. I mean, the Israelis are going to do it, but we're going to support them in order to destroy the nuclear program. Obviously, he talked about Syria, and I like the steps he's taken there. What we want is a stable regime in Syria that is a conservative Sunni regime rather than a radical Sunni regime. That's the key. And so we recognize them, but on the condition that they not go after the Kurds, they not militarize the South, which would imperil Israel, and that they not allow Iran to resupply Hezbollah. And I think the Syrian government's going to be willing to do that. This new leader wants economic contact. So it was a very successful trip. And yes, I'm sure the president talked, particularly with the Saudis, about, look, how can we get this situation in Gaza resolved so we can go back to working on the Abraham Accords.
And we've been speaking with Jim Talent, former U.S. Senator and chairman of the Reagan Institute's National Leadership Council. He's on X at Jim Talent. Thank you, sir, as always. And we'll talk to you again next Monday.
Look forward to it, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir. All right, 444 coming up, Chris's Corner. I'm going to talk a little bit about my trip, and I want to ask you all a question. I want to get your opinion on something. Of course, you can let us know on the stream. And our good friend, old buddy of the show and of you, Tim, he is getting his hearing. I'll tell you who that is when we come back on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
Yeah, for some reason or another, you sounded a little taller on radio.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Another risk of severe storms threatening later this evening and into the overnight hours from about 9 o'clock or so this evening until maybe 3 a.m. in the metro area. We have a risk of all three hazards: hail, wind, and tornadoes. Then it should quiet down for Tuesday morning, but again in Tuesday early in the day, maybe around midday or late morning until the afternoon hours, there's another risk of severe storms if thunderstorms manage to form tomorrow. The primary risk from those storms would be large hail. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Gerhardt.
On the next
Larry Connors USA.
With Larry Connors USA, you always get news, opinion, analysis, plus education.
Larry Connors USA. Now weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
Parents want more choices rather than fewer when it comes to their children's education. And now some Missouri parents will have one more option to get their children the best education available. Low-income students and those with disabilities in Missouri's largest communities can now apply for an Empowerment Scholarship Account, or ESA. With an ESA, the money the state would normally pay to your child's public school goes into an account that you control. You can use the funds for private school tuition, online learning programs, a private tutor, or other approved uses. You can tailor your child's education. For too long, Missouri officials have operated on the mistaken notion that parents only need one choice. They're assigned public school based on their address. ESAs put parents in charge. It's school choice at its best, with money following the students to the place that best fits their needs. Learn more at showmeinstitute.org. This Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
Connor Roofing. You can count on Connor. Connor Roofing is now a 2-time winner of the National Best of the Best Award for customer satisfaction for roofing, storm damage restoration, siding, gutters, both residential and commercial. Please visit ConnorRoofing.com for an estimate. And remember, you can count on Connor.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at Stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. It's the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show.
Meanwhile,
448 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show. It threw me off because I thought it was longer than that. Yes, that is me, Tim. I was trying to imitate our good buddy, former Congressman Billy Long.
I make my butter better, since you bought a bit of better, put it in her bitter batter, made her bitter, better, so does better, Betty, bought a bit of butter.
And that's the real Billy Long.
That's the real Billy.
On our show.
So you really can't tell the difference.
No, not at all.
Between me and Billy. If this radio thing doesn't work out, maybe I'll go auction off some cattle or something or some sheep. Got a future there. But the reason why I had Joey play that is because our good friend, former Congressman Billy Long, has finally received his hearing to become the IRS commissioner. That was held at 10 o'clock in the morning here, there in D.C., 9 o'clock here. So hopefully they have tried to bring up a couple of things to try to derail his nomination. The congressman there from North Carolina who is up for re-election, he wants to question the congressman about a business venture that he was involved in after he left Congress. But I hope that Billy sails through. I love him. I just love his character. He's just a very, very, very genuine person, Tim. You know him a little better than I do. He's a Springfield guy, and I hope he becomes, I don't know how many there's been, but I hope he becomes the next IRS commissioner of the United States.
There's one thing Billy Long does, and that's shake things up no matter what he gets involved in. Yeah. And he's very entertaining. He's very smart and he's very wise, and he doesn't take a lot of guff. And so I think that's exactly what kind of person we need at the IRS. Chris, one of our listeners, one of our intrepid listeners, the famous Lisa, the medical coder.
Oh yeah.
She commented on the cancer diagnosis. You want to hear what the medical coder had to say? She said, "No, they didn't just find this cancer. I see this in my workload all the time. They're not going to skip the PSA, the PSA readings on the president of the United States. That reading would have been high all along. And then you do an MRI and then you see what's really going on." So she says this baloney about, this revelation. She says it's all a bunch of butt kiss, basically.
Exactly.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. She is backing up exactly what Zeke Emanuel said. He is a medical doctor. He's in the medical field, of course, as well. And he said that there is no way that this was in the last 6 months, 100 days, or whatever. So once again, they are lying to us. They talk about the coincidence because this Jake Tapper book is coming out. Did they release this cancer diagnosis now to try to blunt all of the criticism that will be coming out? Who knows? But we'll be talking about it later and maybe on future Chris's Corner, which we're about to do now.
Chris.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And now, Chris's Corner.
You guys been keeping up with this James Comey seashells on the store deal and everything. I kind of started following it over the weekend, hadn't heard too much about it. 8647. That was written out in shells. Comey claims he has no idea what that means. Apparently, Tim, he voluntarily interviewed with Trump security after posting the now deleted photo. He maintains he didn't know the numbers meaning, and he said he did assume that there was a political message. You know, we've heard about these outages in Newark Airport. There's been 3 in the last 3 or 4 weeks so far. Tim, it's spread. This happened at Denver International Airport last Monday. They lost contact with air traffic control. 20 pilots did in a communications outage that lasted multiple minutes. That is a scary thing. Boy, California Governor Newsom, he is stepping all over the Democrats' message that Republicans and Donald Trump want to cut health care for poor and indigent people. California Governor Newsom has proposed cutbacks in health benefits for undocumented migrants in an effort to make up the $12 billion shortfall that California is facing. He said he blames Trump's pendulum swings on tariffs. It's the tariffs. That's why he's got to cut immigrants for illegal immigrants. Yeah. Boy, Governor Newsom, he is tacking to the center. He, of course, we know Governor Gecko, as I call him, will run for president in 2028. And he's trying to use this time period of the Trump presidency to do that. I don't think people are going to fall for it. And even more than that, even if he can pull it off, that he's this moderate, just look at his record there in California. It's absolutely horrible. Look here, $12 billion in taxes. One thing that's in the news currently, Congress is trying to repeal California's EPA emissions ban because basically gasoline cars with gasoline engines cannot be sold in California after 2035, and 12 other states have adopted that. So that's just a disaster. All right, I want to talk a little bit about my flight to Phoenix on Friday. When my wife dropped me off at the airport, it was a nice spring sunny day. I had heard there were supposed to be some storms, but I thought they were going to happen during the day. We really didn't have that much. When we took off from St. Louis, probably the first 30, 45 minutes of our flight was very, very turbulent. But no one, the pilot, stewardesses, no one said that be prepared for turbulence leaving St. Louis. There are storms in the area, but we believe it's safe to take off. No one said anything. Even during the flight, we're 30 minutes, 40 minutes up, and we're hitting turbulence. No one's like, hey, brace yourself. We think there's going to be some turbulence here for the next few minutes. All right, I can forgive that. I really can't because I don't like flying. But still, the fact that you don't keep me informed of, be prepared for turbulence. We're going to be facing turbulence. But here's the deal. When Becky, we have a ritual that when she's traveling alone or I'm traveling alone, we text each other and tell, hey, I landed. And so I did that. And she told me, boy, you just missed the storms here. She's like, half hour after I dropped you off, got black, green. Me and the cat went in the basement. She said she heard the train sound that she thought. And so after we were leaving the plane, I said to one of the flight attendants, boy, I heard that there are tornadoes in St. Louis. And he looks at me, he's like, yeah, they closed the airport 30 minutes after we left. No one came on when we landed and said, hey, there's been tornadoes in in St. Louis. You may want to call your people to see if they are okay, check on your property, check on your pets or whatever. Nothing. It's just Okay, we landed in Phoenix. Have a good time. Do Tim and Joey, did the airline have a responsibility to tell the passengers that there was a tornado in the city that you just left, and many of you, that's probably your hometown? Did they have a responsibility to do that? I can understand maybe they didn't want to scare us or frighten us, but what your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would have said, hey, folks, just so you know, had some really rough turbulent weather right after takeoff. You might want to give your loved ones a holler, check on them, and see how they're doing. Yeah. Just do that.
You wouldn't have said tornadoes.
I don't know that I would have said that without having direct, knowledge and information.
That's right, because they didn't know. Was strong. You're right. They didn't know
some really rough weather. We left behind. Thank goodness we landed safely. Left some really rough weather. You might just want to check on home base before you go about your business here in Phoenix.
Nothing.
That's
nothing.
Weird.
Just landed and have a great day. Yeah. Enjoy Phoenix. Joey, your thoughts?
Glad it's sunny here. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think you should have called your cat and checked in. And I'm sure she was terrified.
I mean, should they have told us? I mean, I know they don't want to scare their passengers and maybe not frighten them, but I mean, do they have an obligation to say? And I haven't mentioned the airlines, even though everybody knows the only airline I fly, but I haven't mentioned the name. I mean, did they have an obligation to say, hey, call your people back home if you were from St. Louis or family or whatever? There's been some bad weather.
I think it would have just made you more worried. So you were better off not knowing.
All right. That's Joey's opinion. That's Tim Jones' opinion. You know my opinion. And Tim's going to give even more opinions at 5:07 with the Speaker Stump Speech.
Indeed, we're going to talk about the big media misses and whether it's been intentional over the last few years.
All right. And we'll have our usual chat with Susie Moore, Deputy Managing Editor at RedState.com. We'll talk about the top Red State headlines. Listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL.
Tony Colombo here for Gutter Pros, your all-in-one gutter service team that brings years of experience and quality that's affordable right to your doorstep. We discovered Gutter Pros a few years ago when we bought our home and inherited a gutter issue that was on the road to becoming a potentially big problem, but thanks to Gutter Pros was stopped before causing any major damage. They've also repaired the siding on our home because along with gutter repair, gutter installation, and leaf protection, the Gutter Pros are also the best for siding repair and installation. Learn about all the ways Gutter Pros can help your home at gutterpros.com.
Hey, Tony Colombo here, inviting you to the Bluff City Outdoors Show Fishing Pentathlon, a one-of-a-kind multi-species fishing tournament Sunday, June 8th at Carlisle Lake. There'll be several side pods, but to win, your team has to catch all 5 species of fish with the highest total weight. This unique tournament gives fishermen of all levels a chance to walk away a winner. Get more info and reserve your spot now by going to BluffCityOutdoors.com and searching tournament entry, or just go to the events tab on the Bluff City Outdoors Facebook page. The Fishing Pentathlon, brought to you by Great Harvest Bread Company in Maplewood.
As we pause to honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom this Memorial Day, let us remember their courage and dedication.
Words cannot measure the depth of their devotion, the purity of their love, or the totality of their courage.
A reminder from local businesses who support our veterans. Freddy's Market in Webster Groves, Blue Sky Apparel and Promotions, Ray Ray's Kettle Corn, and from News Talk STL.
Why leave your company's story to chance? In today's digital world, video content isn't just an option. It's essential for your success. At Blue Ocean Media Group, we've spent decades crafting compelling visual stories for businesses just like yours. From concept to completion, our award-winning team transforms your vision into powerful video content that connects with your audience and drives results. Don't trust your brand to amateurs. Partner with Blue Ocean Media Group. Visit blueoceanmediagroup.com today, and let's bring your story to life.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 101.9, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news this hour at townhall.com. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. A victory for President Trump at the U.S. Supreme Court. The High Court is allowing the Trump administration to strip legal protections from 350,000 Venezuelans, and the ruling potentially exposes them to deportation. Venezuelans were granted temporary protected status during the Biden administration, allowing people already in the U.S. to live and work legally because of unsafe conditions in their native countries. The Trump administration also wants to deport migrants from Cuba, Haiti, and Nicaragua. Greg Clugston, Washington. The House Budget Committee voted last night to advance President Trump's legislative agenda, with the sweeping bill clearing a key hurdle. Still more votes in another committee set to come this week. Speaking with reporters, House Speaker Mike Johnson says he is optimistic.
I told all the members on a conference call this morning that this is a consensus building operation. It's been a bottom-up process. That was what everybody wanted. That's what we've delivered. And we're almost there. And I'm very optimistic that we will find the right equilibrium point to get this bill delivered.
And GOP leadership spent the weekend racing to get the president's tax and spending cuts bill back on track after some intra-party debates over the size of the budget cuts and deficit spending. At least 24 people have been killed after severe storms raked parts of Missouri and Kentucky over the weekend. Dustin Jordan with the National Weather Service says there's more bad weather on the way.
The most concerning thing we have is tomorrow afternoon, we're going to have another round of showers and thunderstorms move across the area. Some of those thunderstorms, especially in the afternoon and evening time frame, some of those could be strong to severe.
A diagnosis of prostate cancer for former President Biden. Doctors say although prostate cancer cannot be cured, it can be successfully managed. The 82-year-old Biden wrote on social media, quote, "Cancer touches us all." More on these stories at townhall.com.
Hey, it's Mike Rohn. If I have a choice, I like to do business with companies that actually stand for something. That's why I switched from Verizon to Pure Talk. No offense to Verizon, I'm sure they stand for something. I just don't know what it is. Pure Talk, on the other hand, is a veteran-owned company that supports our military in a big way, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I also appreciate unlimited talk and text and plenty of data for half the cost of the big guys, and I do like being on America's most dependable 5G network for just $20 a month, but what I really appreciate is no contract, no cancellation fees, and Pure Talk's commitment to handle all their customer service in this country. I saw it for myself. I went to Georgia, I got a tour of their headquarters, I met their CEO, and I talked to the same customer service folks that you'll talk to when you dial pound 250 and say keyword micro. Switch today and save 50% off your first month when you dial pound 250 and say keyword micro. Pure Talk, a wireless company that actually stands for something.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Another risk of severe storms threatening later this evening and into the overnight hours from about 9 o'clock or so this evening until maybe 3 a.m. in the metro area. We have a risk of all three hazards: hail, wind, and tornadoes. Then it should quiet down for Tuesday morning, but again in Tuesday early in the day, maybe around midday or late morning until the afternoon hours, there's another risk of severe storms if thunderstorms manage to form tomorrow. The primary risk from those storms would be large hail. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Gerhardt.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Discover little-known strategies that could be the difference between choosing the care you deserve or having someone else decide it for you. Get a free copy of Chris's book at serenityltc.com.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli here with our great friend Chris Cooper from Serenity Wealth Management. Hi, Chris.
How are you, Vic?
I don't want to put anybody else down, but that when you go up and visit you at Serenity Wealth, your place looks like home.
So a lot of financial advisory offices, they have, the big mahogany desk or the big marble entryways and things like that. The stock market channel on the TV when you walk in the door, right? That doesn't really drive a good conversation. Good financial guidance and advice starts with a good conversation. People are nervous. People are afraid to talk about finances, right? And so you can see a little standoffish. Well, my objective is to try to have a good casual conversation. By having those conversations about life, goals, objectives, it's what makes me understand what our financials are supposed to fund.
So if somebody does want to have a good conversation, how do they do that? How do they find you?
Our website is the best way to do that because you can get all the information you need, understand where we are, get a little bit more information, all that. SerenityWealthNow.com.
Reach out to Chris and Stacy today at SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.
All the information I need on the drive to work.
Like Ferguson in the morning. I keep it on throughout the day, whether it's local, national, or something big that's happening overseas.
News, analysis, and opinion.
St. Louis is #1 for conservative talk.
News Talk STL.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
The more you remove voting from Election Day, the more opportunity you're offering for people to commit fraud.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
I think the Democrats are so short-sighted in this tactic they have now to just cheat at any cost to win elections.
lying dog-faced pony shoulder. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you.
What are we doing wrong here? As a former leader in the House, I think you can put your finger on it. It's called leadership. We don't have it.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
How involved does the president intend to be directly in talking to House members about the bill over the next couple of weeks or the next week?
Sure. Well, over the weekend, the president was in direct conversation and communication with the Speaker of the House. He's been very involved. He always is. He's willing to pick up the phone when he is asked to. So he'll continue to be very engaged in this process with both House members and his friends on the Senate side as well.
And that's the update on the one big beautiful bill that got hung up in the House Budget Committee last week. And then last night, it was released. It was moved forward. Welcome to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. Second hour here on a Manic Monday, May the 19th, 2025, 5:06 in the PM. Chris, I'm going to be heading to Washington, D.C. later this week. And if I get any insight or information, I'll let you guys know. I may be able to join you guys on Wednesday or Thursday afternoon while I'm up there. I'm going up for an ALEC event, and they're going to take us to the executive office building at the White House, which will be fun. And then I might get a chance to see Congressman Burleson and Onder at an evening event that evening. So if they give me any inside baseball, I'll make sure to tell you guys what is really going on with the big, beautiful bill, which did clear the House Budget Committee last night in a rare late night vote in advance of today. All the members coming back to D.C. on a Monday.
It advanced, but it didn't advance because 6 people voted present to get it out of the committee, but it still has a whole lot of work to go. And you have the dynamic that you have is that you have these moderate Republicans in New Jersey and New York and California that are saying that we will not budge on the SALT tax. And you have conservatives that are saying that we're not budging on these Medicaid cuts. So where is the equilibrium there that both can agree to? And I think it's going to come down to Trump getting involved in this ultimately.
He'll have to get involved, and he needs to get involved, and he should get involved. Someone reminded me the other day that in Trump 1.0, Trump 45, the reason we're debating this one big beautiful bill is because the Trump Tax Cut and Jobs Act passed in the first term. They didn't get that done until December. So the good news is we're ahead of the curve right now, but with the congressional calendar, they're always in and out so much. They basically take the entire month of August off. They do need to keep the pedal down on this bill, because if there's one thing that government loves, and it's to procrastinate. And so they got to keep the activity on this bill and get it done long before December.
And I think that's one piece of leverage that the speaker will have is the August recess, because next year is an election year, and these Congress people want to go into their districts for a month and campaign. And if Johnson says, hey, until we get this bill done, you guys aren't going anywhere, I think that gives a lot of incentive. And there's a phrase they use in D.C. Whenever these guys are ready to get out of here and go back to their districts and go home. It says they get jet fumes smells, which means they want to board their planes and go home. I think that's the leverage leadership, as you know, Tim, always have. Did you have that power in the State House? Could you say that well, no, because 6 o'clock it had to adjourn automatically. I mean, did you have the power to keep people going if there was some type of recess? But they don't have recess.
Day to day. And in fact, as majority leader, the second in command, you technically have more power, because each day it's the majority leader who makes the motion of what to do next. So as majority, now they will do this in conjunction with the speaker, right? But, as majority leader, if I wanted to put some pressure on people, I'd say, look, we're going to get this bill done this week, or we're coming in on a Friday, which is the dreaded word in the Missouri legislature.
That's the leverage.
And you go to everybody in the caucus and you say, look, we're either going to come back, we're either not going home today, Thursday, and coming back tomorrow, or we're going to get this done today. So you did have
I forgot about
Chris,
that.
The one thing legislators love, like the rest of humanity, is a certain schedule, right? They like to know what's coming next. And when the expectation is I'm going home on a Thursday, and you say, yeah, I think we're going to stay till Friday this week. You know what, Chris? It's amazing. Everybody suddenly wants to compromise and work something out.
Get in that routine, and you want to go home. I mean, being in Washington, and being a congressperson is a big deal and all that, but you ultimately want to get back home.
Yep. The best congressmen and women want to go home.
Yep.
Some of them just like to stay in D.C. Chris, some other big headlines. We had this.
Wait a minute. Where does Claire McCaskill live right now? Still
at MSNBC, I think.
And she has a townhouse in D.C., so she didn't leave.
No, I don't think so. No, she's taking up residence there.
D.C.
Indeed.
person now.
Chris, you hear about this whack job who bombed the fertility clinic?
I did. I'm very suspicious about it, too.
Yeah. Suspected fertility clinic bomber held left-wing anti-natalist ideology. Basically, that's what many of these left-wing lunatics believe, is that the human race is bad for the planet and that we should end the procreation of humankind sooner than later.
Yeah, I think I read something about that. They were a bunch of nihilists and they follow Nietzsche, that human beings are terrible people. Whenever I see things like this, I automatically get suspicious, because we've seen instances where the left try to drum up a controversy, especially on an issue that's important to them, like abortion and other issues, where they'll freaking bomb the thing themselves and try to make the speculation that these are right-wing Republicans bombing abortion clinics and IVF clinics. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised somehow it's connected to the left just to try to make the right and the pro-life crowd look bad.
I don't doubt it at all. And 28 people, unfortunately, lost their lives in some of these massive storms, as we are still very much in the middle of tornado season, especially here in the heartland. So, folks, this is our PSA to all of you today. I don't believe there was any bad weather that erupted this afternoon. There was a prediction. There was a possibility for that. And they have moved that to late tonight. So all of you need to have some mechanism in place that you are woken up if a storm, so Chris, we've got this in our city of Eureka years ago, we were able to sign up for the Code Red system.
Oh, okay. What's that?
It rings you. It rings all your phones.
Okay.
It rings all your phones, and it'll say flood warning or tornado warning or thunderstorm warning. So all of us have the way to do that. So if you wake up in the middle of the night, don't just go back to bed. I would challenge you to flip on Camo V4 or something and learn what is happening if you wake up at 1:30 or 2 in the morning, and find out if you need to do like what Becky Arps and the cat did last week, and that was go to the basement.
We had that a couple of months ago where our phones went off. It was like 1:30 in the morning, and we were like, I think there was already a storm, and then we like, okay, I think it's over. And then it went off again, and we sat there for a minute like, what do we do? Do we do it, or, is this going to blow over? And I we decided, yeah, let's go down to the basement, but don't ignore that, especially when it's in the middle of the night.
So the latest forecast at this moment in time here at 5:13 Central is that the rain chances that were supposed to happen this afternoon have completely dissipated. But tonight, beginning, lovely, right when we're all going to bed, beginning around 10 p.m. this evening, there is another prediction for some severe weather to be in our area. Thunderstorms, things of that sort. And that's going to last until most of the overnight hours, and then it's going to turn to rain. And what they're saying is thunderstorms likely, heavy rainfall, a few storms may be severe. So it doesn't sound horrific, but again, if you're woken up by something in the middle of the night, I would strongly suggest you kind of check on things before you just go back to sleep.
Yeah, while you were talking, though, our guy at First Alert was kind of giving an update on the possibility of bad weather here tonight.
Okay, and just watch for that the rest of the week. So that's some of the major headlines over the last few days. Oh, and J.D. Vance has they did a really funny skit on this on Saturday Night Live this weekend. So J.D. Vance is back in the Vatican for the second time in a month, and this time he was visiting for Pope Leo's first mass. And the guys on Weekend Report, who do the news now on Saturday Night Live, they were like, and we have a picture of J.D. Vance going to the Vatican. And it was a picture of J.D. Vance dressed up as the Grim Reaper, because the last time he was there, the Pope died the next day. So come on, that's kind of funny, but in a very macabre fashion.
They get to hit two birds with one stone, politics and religion.
Indeed, and hit them square in the bullseye. Producer Joey V in studio with us here today. And Joey, Chris, we talked about the fact that this weekend is Memorial Day.
That's right.
How did that happen? And our birthdays, Joey and I's birthdays, are on Sunday, and then yours is the following Thursday, Friday?
Friday.
Yeah,
May
yours
30th.
is the following, and Larry Connors is in there somewhere.
31st. His is Saturday.
The very day after. So we got a lot of birthdays, and it's the unofficial start of the big summer movie blockbuster season. Joey and I talked about a few of those big movies, and Joey, my daughter Abby, my younger daughter, is dedicated and determined that all of us need to go see Final Reckoning, the big Mission Impossible movie, allegedly the last one in the Tom Cruise Mission Impossible franchise that you're seeing this week, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to see it on Wednesday at the IMAX at Ronnie's. So they're going to crank it up real loud so our ears bleed, and we have to give it a good rating. When it's that loud, you know it's good. And Chris, I don't know if I should bring this up, but he was going off on me on my dessert recommendation. Office Mom Michelle here always gets us a nice dessert for our birthdays. And I said, Michelle, I'd love to have an ice cream sandwich. And Chris said, that's whack. That's weak.
Man, I'm thinking of those things that you go to the grocery store and you go to the freezer section, you get like 12 of them for like $4.99, and you get the really cheap.
They look like little Amazon Fire Sticks.
That's what I think of, like ice cream sandwiches. I'm like, man, it's your big day. I mean, I always ask for something. I love double chocolate cake. Chocolate cake with chocolate icing. I don't know why Michelle asks me every year, because it's the same thing.
She can't keep track of all of us.
I know.
You know,
it's the same thing every year. Give me a double chocolate cake.
Well, Chris, knowing Michelle, she will not get the mundane ice cream sandwiches. She'll get the fancy ones, and we'll all love it.
Yeah.
I always ask for anything. Michelle is incredibly creative. She's a heck of a baker, and I just kind of leave it to her. But I say, anything that you want to make with peanut butter and chocolate. I'm a Reese's Pieces. I'm a Reese's peanut butter cup guy. So I'm like peanut butter and chocolate. And she always makes some kind of cookie bar or something like that. It's always delicious.
I just hope no one who has a birthday here, I hope they don't like German chocolate, because German chocolate.
Don't do the coconut. Is it the coconut?
It's the German chocolate. I just don't like that flavor. It's gross.
Okay. Yeah. I'll eat it. I'll eat it because I'll eat anything.
Yeah. German chocolate is like the nastiest.
I'll eat anything. We went out for my daughter's, for Abby's. Abby, I'll wish her happy birthday tomorrow. She officially turns 16 tomorrow. But we went out for dinner with the entire family over the weekend to a really cool restaurant. I'll give them a shout out. The Frisco in Webster Groves.
Okay.
Very, very cool place.
What type of style is American, Italian?
Kind of like French Canadian almost,
Okay.
but like hearty food. Like I want to go back in the wintertime because the food was hearty, you know. It was you ever heard of poutine? You ever heard of poutine?
I think I have.
It's really good. It's rich, really rich food. But the desserts were to die for.
Yeah.
And we had the cheesecake was like a
cheesecake.
foot high. It was really fluffy and creamy.
That's the ones I like.
And then I got bourbon chocolate pecan pie.
Is that a drink?
It was a dessert.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a dessert. It was really good. But it was a unique menu. It was definitely a very stick to the ribs kind of menu.
Okay.
There was smash burgers but a little heavier food.
All right. And the most important thing is, was it reasonable? Or
did
I have to mortgage the house?
Not at all.
Not
at all.
Or like put it on the credit card and pay it over 3 months?
No, very reasonable.
Okay.
Very reasonable food. It was very good indeed. Hey, I was next up we got Susie Moore. We're gonna get to her in just a minute. Susie Moore with Red State, and then Chris will have all the major national and international news headlines we may have missed at 5:45. And of course, we will prepare you for the one and only Larry Connors USA. LaCusa, as we call him. Larry Connors USA coming up at 6:05.
What do we call him?
So a friend of mine.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot. Okay.
Friend of mine plays cards and smokes cigars with Larry. And Gary says to me, he goes, how's Larry doing the other day? I said, he's doing great. He goes, you know what we call him? I said, nah, what do you call him? He goes, LaCusa.
Yes.
And I said, what's a LaCusa? He's like, Larry Connors USA. LaCusa.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
I thought that meant like the legend in Spanish or Ukrainian or something. I don't know.
It sounds like it should be like his
La Cosa Nostra.
Yes.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking.
That's like his gang. That's like his cartel gang sign.
LaCusa.
LaCusa.
Don't mess with LaCusa.
Don't mess with LaCusa.
Yeah,
indeed. Vic Porcelli could probably do a whole skit on that.
LaCusa.
So that's who's coming up next. Susie Moore and then Larry Connors USA. We'll pray for that and also everything you may have missed. Hey, I was inspired by the one and only, the unique, there's no one else like him, Todd Showalter. I do read his emails, and to prove that, I'm going to make his little monologue that he released email fashion, which you should all get those emails. They're fantastic. That comes from Todd Showalter Productions. That is the subject of today's Speaker Stump Speech.
Listen to me, listen to me.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius.
It's time for the Speaker's Stump Speech, sponsored by Hanson's Tree Service at hansonstree.com.
So in keeping with the theme of today, I'll tell you what, even though we don't all sit, unlike the legacy media, the national media, who I think sits around and does sessions with each other, figuring all this stuff out and what they're going to talk about each day. We don't do that, but a lot of us are on the same wavelengths from time to time. Todd Showalter wrote a great piece over the weekend called Non-Reporting News. So I think that's what we've referenced many times. It's not just the media getting things wrong or reporting things inaccurately. It's the fact that they don't report the news that should be reported, right? That is one of the most disingenuous things you could do is, we don't want to know the media's opinion. Look, if we want editorials, you can come to this show. You can listen to commentators all over the globe. But how about when you just want the news? Well, the media has got into a bad habit of not reporting the news. If a conservative Republican, Todd says, found the cure for cancer, the headline would read, Big Pharma profits threatened by right-wing meddling. If a Democrat donates a can of beans to a food pantry, it's called a monumental act of compassion, worthy of a 3-part documentary and an Oscar consideration. The media isn't just biased, Todd says. It's running PR for the left. Yeah, it's running the comms department for the left. When the Democrats do something, it's called progress. When Republicans do the exact same thing, somehow it's called oppression. If a conservative donates millions of dollars to a charity, it's got to be a tax dodge, the media would say. If a Democrat donates $10 to a GoFundMe page, it's suddenly national news with a tear-jerking segment narrated by Morgan Freeman. I think that's funny. Disaster relief? Well, in a blue state, it's a tragedy that demands federal attention. In a red state, it's a lesson in why we should have gone green decades ago. Job growth? Democrats are always building back better. Republicans, though, are always accused of lining the pockets of corporate billionaires. Todd says it's like watching two different movies in the exact same theater. The former is on the big screen. The latter plays on a broken TV in the back room. The truth is, good news from the right never fits the narrative. And that's the real point here and the problem. Todd says it's like serving kale at a barbecue. It just doesn't belong. If it can't be spun as evil, greedy, or at least mildly suspicious, then it's just simply ignored. And if and when a Republican does find a cure for cancer, they'd still find a way to bury it on page 12, right between local man wins pumpkin growing contest and squirrel rescued from drain pipe. But don't worry, they'll get back to full coverage of that liberal successful parallel park live from 5 different camera angles, and it'll be front page news above the fold and on every single chyron on CNN in the land. Todd's exactly right. And he's right every single week, which is why you should review his cartoons and read his emails. The biggest problem with the media these days, it's not just the misinformation. It's not just the inaccurate reporting. It's the outright omission of the news, the non-reporting of the news. It's a problem. It's why you should listen to us every day instead of them. And that's the subject of today's Speaker Stump Speech.
I can find no disagreement with anything that you said and that Tom said. It was Showalter, absolutely brilliant. Tim, while you were giving your Speaker Stump Speech, the mayor was having a press conference on the storm.
Oh,
and she made a little news, Tim. She said it was failure of protocol to activate the sirens during the storms. During the storms last Friday.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm sure that will be something we'll be talking about in the days
a little bit
and
of
weeks
accountability.
to come. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
I thought we were supposed to have that now.
Okay.
With the new mayor, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
At least she mentioned it.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't blame anybody else.
Yet. What will she do? What will she do about it? Well, we can ask David Stokes that tomorrow. All right, Chris and I are going to head to a quick break here with producer Joey V on the Wheels of Steel. When we come back, Susie Moore, Deputy Managing Editor at Red State, redstate.com, host of Red State Radio, heard right here every Sunday at 4 p.m., 1019, 94.1, News Talk STL.
Started out all alone.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
Down
I should be able to listen to the radio while I'm collating, so I don't see why I should have to turn down the radio because
all right, okay.
I enjoy listening at a reasonable volume.
Thanks.
From 9 to 11.
I'm learning to fly. Wing got wings.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Another risk of severe storms threatening later this evening and into the overnight hours from about 9 o'clock or so this evening until maybe 3 a.m. in the metro area. We have a risk of all three hazards, hail, wind, and tornadoes. Then it should quiet down for Tuesday morning, but again in Tuesday early in the day, maybe around midday or late morning until the afternoon hours, there's another risk of severe storms if thunderstorms manage to form tomorrow. The primary risk from those storms would be large hail. I'm KMOV First Alert Meteorologist Kent Gerhardt.
Conservative talk for St. Louis.
It's your patriotic right and duty.
The government needs to step up and do its job.
This is News Talk STL.
It's well-balanced conversation.
News, analysis, opinion.
You know, as we've been talking about all this natural disaster planning, it has reminded me that there's a lot of important planning that we need to do in all of our lives, and that includes regarding legal aspects of our lives as well. And you're like, well, Tim, if I'm not getting sued or suing anybody, I don't got to worry about anything, right? No, there's lots of other things with the law that you need to prepare for and plan for, and you can do all of that at Civia Law. Todd Civia and the Civia Law Centers are standing by to assist you today with all of life's challenges and transitions, especially for the ones you need to prepare for. Todd Civia will prepare you and help you with all your legal needs in these areas: estate planning and elder law, special needs matters, real estate matters. A lot of people are into real estate these days. You need to do a lot of important legal planning, and Todd Civia can make it really easy because he actually he deals in a lot of entrepreneurial areas as well. And he told us he dips into some real estate from time to time, so he knows about it because he practices in it. Personal injury, business matters, and he's got great online forms. Where can you find them? CiviaLaw.com. That's SIVIA, CiviaLaw.com. Todd Civia and the Civia Law Centers, they have the lawyers, they have the expertise and the experience to provide you personalized service, comprehensive planning that will lead to strong client relationships throughout the term. Like, you're not just a client or customer, you become someone that they want to follow throughout your career, whatever that might be. They are incredibly reasonable, and they want to help you today with all of life's challenges and transitions. I would urge you to check them out online. There's a ton of great information on the website, including those online forms that can help you get started with many of the items I just mentioned in all those areas of estate planning, elder law, special needs, real estate, personal injury, business, and so much more. Civia Law Centers at CiviaLaw.com. That's CiviaLaw.com.
Are you in a constant battle with mosquitoes outside your house? Well, stop smacking yourself in the face and call Mosquito Joe. Whether it's playing ball with the kids or cooking out with friends, Mosquito Joe treatments allow you to enjoy your yard without the nuisance of pesky mosquitoes, ticks, and fleas. No more itching and scratching, and no more wasting time on smelly products that don't work. Visit MosquitoJoe.com or call 855-ASK-A-JOE to get more information and a free quote. With Mosquito Joe, outside is fun again.
Hi, I'm Helene Tobler, culinary nutritionist at Body of Health Direct Primary Care. Here we do practical wellness. Dr. Randy and I have a common sense approach to healthcare. My passion is helping our members enjoy better nutrition because food is medicine. We approach problems with a lifestyle foundation and cutting-edge medical tool chest. At Body of Health, it's about being your healthiest you. If you want to experience healthcare the way it ought to be, schedule a discovery call today at bodyofhealth.com. That's bodyofhealth.com.
Tony Colombo here for the Farmers Co-op Old Town Country Store in Old Town St. Peters, where they have a huge selection of products and services for your yard and home, including a full line of lawn and garden products, a full line of products for animal care, and that includes anything from livestock to the family dog or cat. They'll fill any size propane tank for about half the price of a new one, and so much more. Visit them in St. Peters on 2nd Street, right behind the QT at 70 and Mid-Rivers Mall Drive. And check out all their products and services at oldtowncountrystore.com.
If you catch me at the border, I got visas in my name. If you come around here, I'll make them all day. I get one
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
You said Jeffrey Epstein committed suicide. People don't believe it.
Well, I mean, listen, they have a right to their opinion, but as someone who has worked as a public defender, as a prosecutor, who's been in that prison system, who's been in the Metropolitan Detention Center, who's been in segregated housing, you know a suicide when you see one, and that's what that was.
He killed himself. You want me to? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
Well, now that the two of them, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, are on the inside looking out, they've got a difference of opinion. And I don't know, Chris, they would seem to have the access to the most information at this point, so maybe they had to change their minds.
Two guys with a whole lot of credibility with the MAGA movement, with conservatives. They both have a law enforcement background, especially with Bongino and the Secret Service. I don't think a lot of people, some may, I don't think a lot of people, I think they've made up in their mind that this was not a suicide. And if you really investigate the case, there's just too many things happening where security guards are leaving at just the right time, their posts, so they can't monitor this man, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes, killing himself.
Many weird questions left outstanding.
Yes.
Let's get to our next guest. She may have an opinion or a thought or two on this and much more.
Oh, Susie Q, baby, I love you. Susie Q.
I'm the boss. How about that?
Yes, she is Susie Moore at Smoozy Q on Twitter X, and she joins us as she does every Monday afternoon. Susie, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, guys. How are you?
Yeah, we're doing just fine. So, Susie, what do you think about this revelation? You would think that if Kash Patel and Dan Bongino could find a shred of evidence to tell people otherwise, they would, but they are both declaring that the Epstein death was, yes, a suicide, as we've been told all along.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where there's really only, I guess, maybe three possibilities. One is that they're right. And now that they've had an opportunity to see everything and all the information there is, they have come to the conclusion that, you know, crazy as it may be and as skeptical as some people are, it really was a suicide. The other is that they've seen all the information and they've been hoodwinked, that somehow these two guys who, have been held in high esteem by many on the right for a long time and, seem to know what they're talking about, have somehow just been fooled, or they've, for some reason been co-opted. And now that they're in those roles, they're no longer white hats. They're part of the deep state system.
I think there's another option too. They want to live.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be co-opted. I mean, whether it's because they're afraid or because they're just dirty, whatever. I mean, the bottom line is this, watching that interview and watching their body language, they both seemed pretty confident in what they were saying and not evasive and not, they didn't seem like they were dissembling. So, I can't know for sure, but I kind of tend to believe them.
All right. Top headline on Red State, our own Senator Josh Hawley at the command center following the tornado. We talked about it at the beginning of the show, just another indication of Josh Hawley's populist bent. Tell us about your article, Susie. Hello?
Oh, did we lose her?
Hello.
Yeah.
I lost you. I heard populist bent and then it.
Josh Hawley seems to have gone on a popular bent, and you had a story talking about him at the St. Louis Command Center. We talked about it at the beginning of the show, how he was basically raking these insurance companies over the coals, saying you need to pay up on your claims. Your thoughts on that, and the other indication he's becoming more populist?
Yeah, I don't know if that makes him populist or not. Obviously, this is an issue that he's been pursuing for a while. He's, in the middle of an investigation, and the point that he's making is that some of these larger insurers are not doing right by their customers. It's one of those things that you can see different perspectives of it, but he's maintaining that they are engaging in some unfair and possibly fraudulent practices, and he's trying to get to the heart of that. So I was actually there today for the press conference, so all those videos and photos are from me. That was basically made 2 points. One was, yes, we want federal assistance. FEMA is getting involved as soon as the governor is able to issue his, request for emergency relief and declaration. The ball will be rolling, and there will be federal resources in addition to the local and state resources. But his bigger point in the kick that he's been on is about insurers, and that they need to, when their policyholders have legitimate claims, they need to pay those claims and not drag their feet and not find little loopholes to get out of covering claims that their policyholders have paid premiums for years. And the bottom line is, the people that were affected by this tornado, they're in dire straits. A lot of these people, their homes aren't livable right now. Things have crumbled around them. They're going to need every bit of help that they can get. And the last thing they need is to get the runaround from their insurance company. So, he's kind of letting the insurers know that he's going to be keeping an eye on this. And I think that's probably reassuring to the people, particularly, in the city of St. Louis, and the people whose homes just really, I saw the pictures, on Friday, and it was striking, but seeing it in person, you guys, it's unbelievable, the level of devastation. I was really taken aback and kind of heartbroken sitting there, looking around me and seeing all the devastation. It was bad.
Yeah, Susie, tornado damage can be god awful. I went to Joplin a week after that tornado back in 2014, and it was hard for the brain to process the amount of devastation. It was really amazing. So
it really is. And then, Joplin, I think, was an EF4 or EF5, so it basically debarked trees and wiped everything off. At least the one in St. Louis wasn't that bad, but it was bad enough. Driving in there, I've driven Kings Highway my entire life. I know Kings Highway very well, but some of the street signs are down, and the street lights or the traffic lights are all out. So everything is a four-way stop in those busy intersections down along Kings Highway and Delmar. That's really hard to navigate, and it's really disorienting.
Yeah, Susie, you'll be happy to know we've put up at newstalkstl.com a list of charities and groups and organizations that we're recommending people patronize, and because they are some of the best in the land. And so we've got that whole list up at newstalkstl.com. Hey, Susie.
Yeah, it's really something.
Yeah, Susie, I missed this until I read your headline, which is why we have you on. You've got a great headline. Jake Tapper, Susie, he's doing all kinds of mea culpas and CYAs, but not admitting it, right? And apparently he's getting schooled on a lot of things, like the fact that he was part of the cover-up that he's writing about in his book about Joe Biden's cognitive claim. Susie, you wrote that Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, also recently set Jake Tapper straight on debt, tariffs, inflation, and how the Trump administration is winning. Do tell us about that.
Yeah, Scott Bessent is somebody that I had no familiarity with prior to the Trump administration. And he's quickly become one of my most favorite cabinet members because he's genial, but he's so smart. And he has a way of just laying things out very matter-of-factly. And you get, he inspires confidence. He knows what he's doing. So, of course, Tapper was pushing back on this idea that tariffs, that they're essentially inflationary. And that's, the American public has already been hit by inflation, so they don't need to be hit with tariffs. So it was his criticism of that. And Bessent basically said, yeah, well, Jake, in essence, what you're saying is that taxes are inflationary, so let's pass the Trump tax cuts. So in other words, he's saying anything that adds onto the burden of the American people, inflationary, is bad. So if that's the case, then we don't want to raise their taxes either. So you should be all in favor of, the extension of the Trump tax cuts. So it's kind of funny because you could see Tapper kind of go, okay, you got me there. So it was interesting because he was definitely ready for the pushback. He was ready for the sort of, try the attempt at the gotcha questions, and he just doesn't really let it get him at all. He's unflappable.
Susie, the media tried to play gotcha over the weekend. Excuse me. They were saying that because President Trump was saying that the foreign governments or those companies, they're the ones that pay the taxes. The American people don't pay taxes. But with Walmart saying that they're raising their prices because of taxes, they're saying that negates the president's argument. Your thoughts?
Well, Besson directly addressed that as well. I mean, he's got a good working relationship with the CEO of Walmart, and he said, there may be some adjustment that they have to make, but you also have to take into account that other prices are coming down, gas prices are coming down, grocery prices are coming down, and in the long run, it's offsetting it. So, I think that his argument is the way that Trump is approaching this and the efforts that he's putting into it are actually offsetting any additional costs that might be temporarily passed on to the consumer, so they shouldn't be, worse off in the long run.
The argument that I heard that the savings on the gas is $400 a year to Americans, and that'll be way offset by the tariffs.
Well, Scott Bessent would disagree with you. So do you want to take him on?
No, I'm saying these are studies that show that, you can do the math and show this. If gas prices are this is what the average American drives. This is how much they're going to save.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Scott Bessent would differ with you. So.
Speaking to Susie Moore of Red State, redstate.com. Susie, as the so play this out, Susie, and putting all this together, we've been discussing if inflation does continue to tick down, which it did in the last report. It's still just a little bit above where the Fed would like it, but if inflation continues to tick down, the job numbers continue to tick up, and the polls continue to ride pretty high for Donald Trump, especially on right track, wrong track of the country. Susie, what narrative do you think most of the legacy media is going to move to next? I just go back to just generally saying Orange Man bad, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's any number of things. It's hard to imagine what they'll come up with next. But yes, it'll be some variation of Orange Man bad. I mean, any information that comes out, anything that's potentially a negative, anything, if we're not able to make much headway with getting a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine, then that's going to be his fault. They're going to take whatever they can to blame on him. And I think, right now, one of the things that they're doing is, kind of trying to turn the whole, it isn't so much directed at Trump himself, it's the Republicans. The fact that people are saying, there was this issue with Joe Biden that you guys covered up and no one's acknowledging, and this needs to be addressed. And they're trying to kind of flip it around like, ooh, Republicans pounce.
Republicans pounce. Yeah.
and instead, conveniently, I guess, or interestingly enough, once you have the situation with the cancer diagnosis, which is so serious, then it's all about, well, you're supposed to be sympathetic to Joe Biden instead of coming after his handlers, his team, and the media for hiding up the fact that whether he had this cancer diagnosis or not, whether they knew about it, how long they knew about it, setting that aside, the man wasn't capable of doing the job, and that was covered up all these years. So they're trying to kind of spin it into, well, let's just feel sorry for President Biden as opposed to let's acknowledge our own, what we did to contribute to this.
Yeah, David Axelrod has said, now that we know the president has cancer, we don't need to talk about his mental deficiencies. We need to move on now. That's the David Axelrod line.
That doesn't negate it. It doesn't change it. It kind of makes it worse in some ways, because there really is a serious question about, well, how long have they known about this? And this really just suddenly, crop up and surprise everybody? It's a little hard to believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Move on. Nothing to see here. Susie, thanks for all the time, the information, and the analysis as always. Folks, you can follow Susie throughout the week at SmoozyQ on Twitter, Red State Radio, which she hosts every Sunday at 4 p.m. here at News Talk STL. And you find her frequently throughout all of our shows throughout the week, Monday through Friday. Susie, thanks so much as always.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.
You
too as well. Redstate.com. Great website, indeed. All right. One last segment.
That's it.
Wow, amazing.
We'll beat the storms.
I hope so. 5:45 here in the Heartland. Yeah, be weather aware tonight. Be careful as you're out and about. We'll prepare you for the evening ahead, including Larry Connors USA. Chris, I, and Joey back with that and more on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps Show, 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL.
You're listening to Tim Jones and Chris Arps.
This will not stand, you know? This aggression will not stand, man.
This hour of Jones and Arps is brought to you by Stifel. Contact your Stifel financial advisor at stifel.com. That's STIFEL.com. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Another risk of severe storms threatening later this evening and into the overnight hours from about 9 o'clock or so this evening until maybe 3 a.m. in the metro area. We have a risk of all three hazards, hail, wind, and tornadoes. Then it should quiet down for Tuesday morning, but again in Tuesday, early in the day, maybe around midday or late morning until the afternoon hours, there's another risk of severe storms if thunderstorms manage to form tomorrow. The primary risk from those storms would be large hail. I'm KMOV First Alert meteorologist Kent Earhart.
Free speech is alive and well in America right here.
It's about time somebody stood up for true American values.
What this country needs is some backbone.
Finally, a president who wants to make real change.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Now, I've been banking with Royal Banks probably about 25 years now. I told you my father banked with Royal Banks before that when he had his own business. They've been around since 1964, and you feel the difference the moment that you walk in. They are a community bank. They're not some big bank that's headquartered in New York and you're just a number. They are here live. We've had the CEO of the bank, Mitch Baden, on our show many, many times. They've also made my life a lot easier because they have 17 locations around the area, even up in Hannibal and in Rawls County, across the river in Granite City, Illinois. They also have over 200 ATMs across the Midwest. And I love their ITMs, their interactive teller machines, where you can talk to a live banker until 7 p.m. Whether you need a mortgage, an auto loan, or just everyday banking, Royal Banks of Missouri makes it simple, and they treat you like family. You can check them out at royalbanksofmo.com, royalbanksofmo.com. Royal Banks of Missouri, the community bank for your community.
Hey, Colombo here for Intervine, a great local company that has customers all across the country due to the quality of their products. Intervine has the best flashlights, lanterns, headlamps, and even batteries, including the new Monster 2000 Lumen waterproof lantern and the Sentinel 2000 self-defense flashlight. Our home and vehicles are full of great Intervine products, and right now you can shop their website and get 25% off your entire purchase just by using my name, Tony, as your promo code. That's promo code Tony at Intervine.com.
Another RX Watch, brought to you by Onder Law.
Welcome back to RX Watch. This alert is disturbing.
Right. A while back, we learned that companies like Johnson & Johnson use a mineral called talc in baby powder and other products.
And studies show that talc, when used for feminine hygiene, can cause ovarian cancer.
Now listen to this. RX Watch has learned that the talc they use is being mined in China.
Right, and talc mined in China contains heavy metal contaminants like chromium and magnesium, which are known to cause cancer. But China doesn't care.
So China gets the jobs and we get contaminated talc in our baby powder.
And ovarian cancer.
Right. With their specialized tests, the medical team at Onder Law can help you know if your ovarian cancer was caused by talc.
Onder Law has helped women for years with free and confidential consultation. You need to call Onder Law's pharma attorneys at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
Call Onder Law at 1-800-RX-WATCH.
That's 1-800-RX-WATCH, or go to rxwatch.com.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
I am so high, I can hear heaven. I'm so high, I can hear heaven.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps, driving the leftist crazy all afternoon.
Today, it's my honor to officially sign the Take It Down Act into law. It's a big thing, very important, so horrible what takes place. This will be the first ever federal law to combat the distribution of explicit, imaginary, posted without subject's consent. You take horrible pictures, and I guess sometimes even make up the pictures, and they post it without consent. We've all heard about deepfakes. I have them all the time, but nobody does anything. I asked Pam, can you help me, Pam? She says, no, I'm too busy. Too busy doing other things. Don't worry, you'll survive. But a lot of people don't survive.
550 on the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show. And Tim, I know the sex symbol that you are, and now that you're in the public eye with a radio show and all of the activities that you have, I'm sure you're glad that this legislation has been implemented, so there won't be any deep fakes of you somewhere on the internet with your sexy body and being exploited.
Well, do we get to sue Joey now? Because
I'm deep faking you guys every day.
He deep fakes us every day.
True. That's true.
Although I will say, Chris and I generally do look like that in person.
Oh yeah,
it's fairly accurate.
Except for the gut for me. Joey does take my gut out, but I think I do have those guns. Joey, I was meaning to tell you earlier when we were talking about the movies and everything. You're a thin guy, and with that black T-shirt there and the hair, you kind of got a James Dean kind of look going today.
Oh my!
Don't you kind of in the right light, Tim? Don't you kind of see a kind of a James Dean kind of look on you today?
I can see that.
Can you
roll
your sleeve up?
Yeah. I got a pack of smokes right here just in case.
You know who he also reminds me of? Joey, you remind me of that actor from Entourage, the famous HBO series Entourage. It was
not
a movie.
Turtle, probably.
Not Turtle. No. The main character, Joey. I forget his name. He was a tall guy with curly dark hair.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like Joey,
Yeah.
And he was like this famous movie star, and he had this pack of followers.
Entourage. It sounds like vaguely familiar.
Very funny. Very
Adrian
funny. Adrian Grenier. Yeah. What did he do after that? Anything? Has he been around? Has he been in stuff? I just missed him.
I don't know. When that movie that they faked on the show was coming out, it was Aquaman. They were faking Aquaman on Entourage, and then it actually came out.
Yeah.
I don't know if he makes money off of that for some reason. Get some royalties.
Adrian Grenier.
Hey, I got to give a shout out to one of my wife's dearest friends, Ann DeMay. She's, and don't take this the wrong way, Ann, she's the reason why I left for Phoenix this weekend, because she was coming in to visit Becky and stay.
And she said, Chris, get the hell out of town. Yeah.
I said, you know what? This may be an excellent time for me to go visit my friend in Phoenix.
There you go.
She had her girls' weekend. I had my guys' weekend. But Ann is a sweet person, a dear person. She has been a friend of Becky's for a long, long time. And I hate that I missed you, but she's listening. She lives in Joplin.
Oh, cool.
So, we always talk about the app, use the app. So Ann is using the app and listening to the show. She is a good conservative. And,
nice.
Thank you, Ann, for keeping my wife company this weekend. And thank you for just your friendship with us.
She's helping us pump up those streaming numbers.
Exactly. And
Yes.
thank you for that too. All right. Corny moment over. I always tell Becky that when I'm being corny for a minute. All right. I say, all right, corny moment over. I got to be the real me again.
You know what Bongino would call that?
What's that?
He would call that a TMI moment.
TMI
They had a stinger. So Dan would tell his producer, all right, Mike, or what was his producer's name, Joey? Do you remember that? There was two of them. There was two guys. You heard from them every once in a while. And he'd say, all right. And they'd play Dan Bongino's TMI moment. And he'd go, okay. And I got to tell you about my, he would do exactly what you just did there.
You just have to admit, all right, quick moment.
Producer Jim.
Producer Jim. Yeah.
We had the big tornadoes, of course, over the weekend. 28 people killed in 4 or 5 states that I think. I've got a report here from AP. It says about 1,200 tornadoes strike the U.S. annually, and they have been reported in all 50 states over the years. But researchers found in 2018 that deadly tornadoes were happening less frequently in the traditional tornado alley of Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas, and more frequently in parts of the more densely populated and tree-filled Mid-South area.
Oh.
So that's Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, maybe in some parts of the
River Valley. Yeah, that River Valley below us. Yeah, I would agree with that. It seems like most of the storms this year have gone mainly to our south. And Arkansas, Tennessee.
Yeah, Arkansas too.
Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, and then into West Virginia.
Yeah, that's so I wonder why.
I don't know.
We need Stell today. This is a weather show.
We do, because when Stell was on earlier today, there was a lot of meteorology and hydrology being discussed. A lot of stuff about water and storms. Yes.
Check out this. This was very interesting. I found this. It says adults are looking online for help with day-to-day life skills that once might have been taught in home economics classes or handed down from elders. Some of these kids, they are looking up Google on how to clean the bathroom vent, how to how to
Really?
how to do an oil change.
Okay.
How to use a mop.
How to use a mop?
That's one of the Google searches that they are doing. These have reached an all-time high on Google this year. By 2018, more than half of U.S. YouTubers were already saying they use the platform for figuring out how to do things they haven't done before. And I've got my own story. There was my car was, I thought it was the battery but I could the car wouldn't turn on, but the lights and everything else turned on, but not the radio. And I was like, it can't be the battery. And it was going to be $200 and some if I took it to do like the diagnostic. So I looked on YouTube. I gave the car everything, what was going on. What it was a particular fuse.
It was a fuse
that was connected to the radio and to the ignition. And that went out. I bought another one. I think the fuse was like $2 freaking. Bought it. Car cranked right up. And I was like, you know what? It would have cost me money to have the car towed. And then they would have done their $150 diagnostic already. I mean, I was just like, YouTube. That's when I was sold on YouTube.
I had a similar experience. I took my vehicle in for something. They did a bunch of service, and then I got home, and there was something rattling, like in the glove box. And I looked on the thing, and they had replaced the cabin filter.
Right.
I'm like, I wonder if they didn't put it in right. I got on YouTube, I found a video, and something wasn't quite screwed in. I wouldn't have known where to begin, but if you show me, I can figure it out. I did the same thing, Chris, and that's where I'm a believer in that as well. How about this? Have you ever been taught how to iron a shirt?
Yes.
Yes. My mom taught me that. My mom, Joanne Jones, taught me that a long time ago. I should get on YouTube and do a shirt ironing video. Maybe I can get sponsored, make a lot of money.
You know what? And I've gone on stuff like that. You would think that, there's some things there just wouldn't be a video for, but there is a video for anything you ask it. Somebody has done it. All right. Been a long time that all of us have been in studio on a Monday. What was a week ago when you were here, but still not a daily occurrence. Great show. Joey did his excellent job as producing as well. Larry Connors USA is up next. Larry's going to talk about, I'm sure, the Biden revelations of the cancer and all of the other big stories of the day. You have been listening to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. Have a safe drive and a great evening.
Hi, Sean Long from STL FenceWorks. A new fence or deck is an investment in your home and your lifestyle. But how do you ensure that you're getting the most out of that investment? At STL FenceWorks, we know the key is satisfaction. Satisfaction means getting a fence or deck that not only meets your needs, but exceeds your expectations. Satisfaction means working with a team that cares